Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Nice to be back in the studio. We've got a big show planned for you today. We got Brianna Joy Gray on. She's going to weigh in on the latest on Democrats negotiating themselves continually down on these stimulus talks. We've got Tom Hartman. He's got a new book out that talks about elite capture of America. Always a timely topic. And Ryan Gerdusky on. He's actually the one, not that anyone has given him any credit in the mainstream, but he's actually the one who broke the story about John Weaver of the Lincoln Project. So we'll find out from him all the details there. But we wanted to start with what appears to be potentially the beginning of a massive cable news ratings crash across the board.
You just hate to see it, Krystal. Let's throw this up there
Breaks
on the
my heart
screen.
to cover this story,
CNN primetime ratings have crashed 44% in the first week of the Biden era. Now, look. To be fair to them, their ratings are high because of inauguration, so take that with a grain of salt. But it's true. What are these people going to cover? I mean, their boogeyman is gone. Now, what's the topic? How great Joe Biden is? Nobody wants to watch that, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's only so much that they can milk, like impeachment. Even then, the impeachment news has been coming out. It's just such a snooze. It's like Trump fired his lawyer. And they're like, oh, my God, we can go back to this. Like, the lawyers. And they try and do, like, the breaking news chyron. It's like, nobody cares, guys. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And so they're screwed. And what I love about this, too, is it ain't just CNN and MSNBC. It's Fox. It's all of them. Everybody is completely screwed because they pegged all their coverage from the right and to the left onto this one man, and now the man is gone. So what are you going to do? And we're finding out very quickly that there must be a lot of panicked faces around New York City in many of these different buildings. And I love to see it. Frankly, I like to see people who do bad things suffer. So sorry.
Well, I mean, so here's the trajectory here. The first ones to take the huge hit were Fox. And we covered that a little bit here. You all probably know. Basically, look, Fox has been the only player in conservative media for a long time.
Basically 20
right?
years. Yeah.
And this is the thing. When you have a country that's more or less evenly split between liberals and conservatives, liberals spread their news consumption on television amongst all of the channels. So you have just a much more divided piece of the pie. Fox had consolidated all of the conservative audience. So they've been a juggernaut, obviously, for years. I mean, they've been almost impossible to beat in dayside, in primetime. Their overall, and this is where you get into a little bit of the news jargon, but overall viewers, they were extraordinarily dominant on because their viewers are the oldest of any of the cable news network, but also in what they call the key demo, which is 25 to 54, which is what actually matters in the business because that's what they sell the ads off of. They were also extraordinarily dominant then. So if you go back even to October, before the election happened, Fox was still dominating. In total day, there were 2.2 million total viewers. That was up over the previous year. Next closest competitor was MSNBC at about 1.5 million. So you can see they're just completely dominant there. In terms of the demo, Fox is at 428. CNN's at 361, MSNBC's in 243. And this has been the story of cable news for years and years and years. Occasionally CNN would score a win over Fox. Occasionally MSNBC would score a win over the Fox. But they were the undisputed king. And that all shifted in November after the election when they would not go all in on Stop the Steal and the election's rigged. And these people over at Newsmax and One America News Network were happy to feed the conspiracy theories. And Fox has seen a lot of erosion in their viewership and have not recovered. Because ironically, I mean, look, they'd be the ones set up to do the best in the Biden era. They know how to run the opposition playbook. They know how to say Biden's bad, Democrats are bad, like everything is bad going on. But because they've had this erosion and lost some of their viewers to these like crazier right-wing networks, that's been a problem for them. So you come to January, CNN and MSNBC actually post record-breaking ratings. I mean, they had sky-high ratings for most of January with the Biden inauguration. CNN, extraordinarily dominant, just crushing
the
crushing
Capitol riots,
Fox.
too. I think the riots.
The riots is absolutely 100%. All of that made for a lot of dramatic fodder as you're coming to the very end. Oh, my God, the dramatic conclusion of the Trump era. What's going to happen? Is he really going to leave? How's this all going to go? And now what we're seeing is, at least in the first week of the Biden era, people are like, we're good. We'll go back to brunch. That was the prompt. That was the promise that was made.
Yes.
We're not going to have to pay attention to this stuff anymore. And so you already see them turning the channel.
Yeah, that's right. And, just the problem for Fox, as you laid out, which is that with the rise of the right-wing competition, is now you've got Newsmax and you've got OAN. And we had to bring you this just incredible moment from yesterday where MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell was on Newsmax spouting some Dominion conspiracy, and this segment just went completely off the rails because it shows you how terrified Newsmax is of being sued for defamation by Dominion, who has filed now suit against Newsmax, against OAN, against Fox, against many other people. I think a $1 billion suit against Sidney Powell and others. And this is how it played out over on that channel. So let's take a listen.
They did this because I'm revealing all the evidence on Friday of all the election fraud with these machines. So I'm sorry if you think it's not
Mike,
it's real.
can I ask our producers, can we get out of here, please? I don't want to have to keep going over this.
Actually,
we at Newsmax have not been able to verify any of those allegations that you're
Mike, hold on a second. Everybody hold on a second. Mike, hold on 1 second. Let's talk a little bit about just what is happening overall.
He walked off the set. And this is the thing. They're eating each other alive. So it wasn't good enough that Fox wasn't covering it. So then they went to Newsmax, and Newsmax went all in on this stuff. And then, got, threatened with defamation. They're like, they had to read this 2-minute hostage video. They're like, we at Newsmax have not been able to find any evidence of the claims that we repeatedly allowed on our network. And now people, because of this interview, are upset at Newsmax. And now they're like, oh, now we're going to OAN. They're like, Newsmax sold out. So there's just this competition within the right ecosystem.
Good luck
and
with
look,
that, guys.
I don't feel bad. This is what I mean. I don't really feel bad for any of these people because they pegged all of their coverage to one thing and they ignored very much important stories. And more importantly, they did their audiences dramatic disservices.
Yeah.
If you're a Newsmax viewer, they lied to you for 2 months straight. If you're a Fox viewer, they basically didn't tell you a lot about what was going on. Or they're like, yeah, your feelings are justified, but none of the truth is there. Same with MSNBC and CNN. They lied to you for 4 straight years about Russiagate. So, look, I think it has consequences. We always used to talk about Fox's 2012 decision to do the whole unskew the polls thing. Oh. And they ginned up their audience where they truly thought that Mitt Romney was going to win.
They thought he was a lock.
Yeah, and then he got wiped out in 2012, and their ratings fell off a cliff for a while. They were saved by DACA and by immigration. That was, and Obama being who it was. If they hadn't been for them, they would have been totally screwed.
I'll never forget. At that election, I was still at MSNBC. And so I was at 30 Rock at NBC headquarters for election night so that I could do my, at 3 a.m., I guess we'll let Krystal say something about the election. Yeah. And no one was watching MSNBC's coverage. Everyone was watching Fox News' coverage because they were just melting down in real time. Karl Rove with his, just wait for Iowa, you called it wrong.
Was it Cuyahoga County?
Yeah, and Megyn Kelly saying, is this real or just numbers that you do as a Republican to make yourself feel better? Didn't work out well for them. Then, look, lying to your audience, feeding them what they want, maybe a good short-term strategy.
Oh, yeah.
It often is
very lucrative.
A good short-term strategy and very lucrative. But ultimately, and I think that's kind of what's happening right now, that bill comes due. The other piece here, which is highly ironic, is the people who protested against Trump the most vociferously were also, in large cases, the ones who benefited and literally profited and made careers off of him. Cable news was in a bad place.
They were dead.
Before Trump came along. The ratings were down. It was boring. It was tired. All of these networks executives were, oh my God, all these cord cutters, young Americans aren't watching our networks. What are we going to do? We're kind of screwed here because we don't really understand the digital space whatsoever. We don't know how to create content that appeals to this generation. And so they were really in a tight spot. Trump rescued them. Now they got to go back to that place. And you see places like, MSNBC and NBC offering their Peacock streaming channel. You see them trying to figure this thing out. But Trump really hid a lot of the fundamental problems within cable news, made everyone attached to cable news, which is a terrible thing for the country. So we should all be cheering for people to be turning them off because, it allowed people also to feel like like if they're watching Rachel Maddow, they're doing, it's like, you know, going to a protest
Civic
or like
service,
being like a community organizer. Like
100%.
they made them feel like they were actually doing something. And that's just not true. It's a
It's also
reality
unhealthy
show.
for a lot of people.
It's infotainment. It's
Yeah.
unhealthy. It's bad for the country. And so that's why we have some schadenfreude here watching these numbers.
Absolutely. Better hope a plane crashes out of Malaysia, because that's the only thing that's going to save it. All right.
We're going to tell what's on our radars. That's next.